So Tanya, I hope I'm saying your name right. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Says byproducts. Byproducts to give a product is unfortunate. She says I usually think it's a marketing strategy to get sales on sympathy, and it usually is a way for people. I said your name so many different times. I hope it's Tanya. Um, so it's a strategy to make people feel like they're doing good in the world, and in some ways you are right. There are situations where things are that bad or aren't able to get started, but I think that's where it's like we need to look at was it Laszlo's hierarchy of needs, right, and look at the like food, shelter, and water. You need those three things so that we can like get people to a place where they're like, okay, what's the next step? Oh, we're gonna look for shoes. Oh, we're gonna look for creating how do we create energy? How do we get electricity into houses? How do we get running water into houses? How do we get like we got to hit those basic needs first so that we can enable people to not be in a survivalist mode, but a growth mode, right? And being able to enable like a blooming effect of people helping one another in a sustainable economic way that isn't downplayed. Now, obviously, where you live has huge implications. If you're living out in a desert and you don't have the support of another like in the case of America, right? Like if you had like New Mexico or Arizona, like out in the desert, Nevada, out in the desert, and it's just them supporting themselves as if they were their own country, it might be a little harder to do so if then if you blend their what they bring to the table with the rest of the country. In the case of say like a desert country in Africa, we that's why we need those investments to look and say, okay, like what do we got to do to get hydroponics there? What do we got to do to get food there, and instill the ability to be able to create sustainability for themselves to some degree, well, hopefully to a high degree, but to some degree, any degree is better than like literally people starving to death. But start somewhere and grow from there. And I think that it requires a lot of money, and it requires a lot of foresight to understand that one a video I referenced before was a TEDx. I think it was a TED talk, specifically talking about like if people that are worried about say overpopulation of the planet. If you chart out the years and the amount of and the countries and like how many kids each person is producing in those countries, if you look at the mortality rates of the children, as mortality rate goes up, I'm pretty sure that's the good one, right? I was thinking about this yesterday. I should have looked it up. I'm really bad at my job. So as the survival rate of children goes up, people have less kids, bringing the amount of people that we are producing on the planet ultimately down, to a peak and then down. And part of that is being able to establish economic ability for growth, opportunity for people to succeed and to grow, and enable people to get from wanting for shoes to wanting for a bike to wanting for a car, and moving people from one eco, or was it socioeconomic platform of like we're trying to get to this spot where everybody has shoes to like everybody has a bike, so we can grow how far out the country, or how like their towns become cities and things of that nature. And I think it's really important that education is out there for us, and to spend money on education and money on at least getting those basic needs instilled into the economic landscape of those people is just so important. Um, Tanya says, right teaching how to create solar panels, wells to catch water, planting food, various sustainable techniques. Right. So it would make more sense to educating properly will balance out the population. It does. But it's more than just education too. It's also about making sure that disease is not a thing, right? So making sure that people are getting vaccinated, making sure that proper health care is in place. So, I mean, even just the basics of healthcare, washing hands, and not say enabling, small towns or villages to like go to the say have like a somebody who's a self-professed like witch doctor or something coming in and creating more like I don't want to say mass hysteria because we're not talking about necessarily a ton of people in a village, but creating doubt is what I should say in modern medicine, modern understanding of science and things like that. And so education plays a part, but also the ability for us to get them vaccinated and enable them to have a higher survival rate of children would be greatly reduce the issues there. Tanya goes on, well, wouldn't people become smarter to solve those and various issues? So let's see. Cameron says with water gathering in one of my social entrepreneurship classes, we talked about a company that instead of building wells that could not be repaired locally and would not be feasible to make in many locations, they created a rolling water vessel that made it easier and faster for people to get water from the nearest sources. No, that is great. I think there was another TED Talk where somebody was like, "Oh, I'm going to create like what would it take me to if I went back in time, uh what would it take me to build a toaster? Could I be like the smartest person on the planet if I could build a toaster?" And so he actually went on this journey like across the world to gather all of the materials to make this really crude looking toaster that I think only worked for like one like a minute or something like that. But it was a proof of concept that he could do it. And so I think that it's and it kind of plays into what we saw and this is not political, but when the US left Afghanistan, we kind of we left a whole bunch of stuff there. And we have these helicopters and things like cool, like we left helicopters, we left things for people to be able to defend themselves. But the problem there is apparently we did not give them the education that they needed to to fix and to repair and to maintain said equipment. So if you can't maintain the equipment that you have, it's not safe to operate, and that becomes a problem in and of itself. And apparently the solution was, well, we'll just we'll FaceTime them and we'll walk them through how to repair or maintain. But that's a great point. Like if you bring, it's like bringing an iPhone to a place that doesn't have electricity. Like cool, it works, but as soon as as soon as the battery dies, if we don't have a way to charge it, then it's not going to be a something that can be anything can be done with it. So we have to be cognizant of what we're creating and making it as simple as possible, because it's almost kind of like going back in time, because the people don't necessarily have the experience with it. They don't necessarily have the experience with technology or the education and stuff to be able to maybe to use it, sure, but when it breaks, if people aren't there to fix it, or the tools or the necessary parts are not there available to fix it, then it ain't getting fixed. And then it didn't ultimately didn't fix the problem that people are going to run into.